NCIS is more than just a procedural, it is a television institution. For over 2 decades, millions found comfort in Gibbs's rules and the tight-knit family dynamic of the major case response team. We welcomed them into our living rooms, feeling as though we knew them personally. However, the show's incredible longevity has come with a terrible price. While they solved crimes effortlessly on television, the actors themselves faced death sentences they could not escape. From sudden shocking heart attacks to quiet agonizing battles with terminal illness, the history of this show is marked by profound loss. Join us as we pay a tearful tribute to the beloved NCIS stars who have tragically died, leaving a void in the squad room that no investigation can ever fill. David McCallum entered the NCIS morgue in 2003 as Dr. Donald "Ducky" Mallard when he was 70 years old, a beloved medical examiner whose gentle wisdom on screen concealed the scars of a father's worst nightmare. While Ducky was the soul of the show, McCallum was a veteran icon who brought immediate prestige to the procedural. Initially earning an estimated $75,000 per episode, his salary swelled to a reported $175,000 in later seasons as he became indispensable, amassing a net worth of over $10 million. Yet no amount of fame could erase the devastating shadow cast in 1989 when he found himself living a real-life autopsy of the heart. His adopted son, Jason, died from an accidental overdose at just 27, a grief McCallum carried in silence for decades. He was the last original cast member to pass away dying of natural causes on September 25, 2023, just days after his 90th birthday, leaving a void that can never be filled. Fun fact: long before he was the quirky doctor, McCallum was a global heartthrob in the 1960s who actually released 4 albums of instrumental music, one of which included the famous sample later used by Dr. Dre. Ducky was a man defined by his eccentricities, many of which he inherited from a mother who was as sharp as she was suffocating. Next is the legendary actress who brought that matriarch to life, a woman whose regal on-screen presence masked a final act filled with physical agony. Nina Foch joined the cast in 2005 as Mrs. Victoria Mallard when she was 81 years old, a fading silver screen royalty who played a mother losing her mind while she herself was losing her body. A true legend of the golden age who starred in the 10 Commandments, Foch accepted the recurring guest role for a standard guild fee estimated at $5,000 to $8,000 per week, a humble sum for a woman who once commanded the studio system. However, her value lay not in the paycheck but in her prestige, as she continued teaching the next generation of stars at USC while battling her own biological clock. Behind the dementia-ridden character she played with such heartbreaking realism, Foch was suffering from myelodysplasia, a blood disorder that slowly drained her vitality. She died on December 5, 2008 at age 84, passing away at the Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center, leaving behind an estimated estate of $3 million and a legacy of teaching giants like Julie Andrews. Fun fact: she was so respected as an acting coach that during her time on set, even the main cast of NCIS would often quietly ask her for advice on their scenes, treating her like the professor she was. Foch represented the dignified past of Dr. Mallard, but the show also introduced us to his professional past. Our next subject is a comedy titan who arrived with a smile, but whose real-life final years were marked by the crushing grief of losing his partner of 60 years. Bob Newhart walked into the lab in 2011 as Dr. Walter Magnus when he was 82 years old, a comedy institution whose rare dramatic turn hinted at a loneliness that would tragically define his own final days. As one of the most successful comedians in history, Newhart didn't need the money. His appearance was a stunt-casting coup that likely commanded a premium guest fee of over $15,000 a token amount, compared to his massive fortune of $65 million built from sitcom syndication. While he played a man feeling obsolete on screen in reality, Newhart remained a beloved icon until the very end. However, his life script took a heartbreaking turn in 2023 when he lost Jenny, his wife of 60 years, leaving him unmoored in a world he had always laughed with. He followed her just a year later, dying on July 18, 2024 at the age of 94, after a series of short illnesses unable to exist without his other half. Fun fact: before he became a comedy legend, Newhart was a certified accountant who famously hated the job, once claiming he balanced the books by simply paying the difference out of his own pocket to go home early. Newhart played a mentor figure to Ducky, but our next actor played the moral compass for the show's lead, Gibbs. He was the quintessential father figure of American television, yet his own life was a harrowing battle against the bottle and the tragic loss of a daughter. Ralph Waite arrived in Stillwater in 2008 as Jackson Gibbs when he was 80 years old, the rugged patriarch who taught Gibbs his code while carrying a real-life history of heartbreak that would have broken a lesser man. Famous as the father on The Waltons, Waite brought immense emotional weight to NCIS for a recurring guest salary estimated at $10,000 per episode, a modest figure for a man who defined fatherhood for a generation. Yet the wholesome image masked a turbulent reality. Waite struggled with severe alcoholism for years before getting sober, a demon born from the darkest tragedy imaginable. In 1964, he lost his 9-year-old daughter to leukemia, a pain he buried deep within his soul and which fueled the raw emotion in his performances. He passed away on February 13, 2014 at age 85 from natural causes, leaving an estate of approximately $2 million and a cast that wept for him as if they had lost their own father. Fun fact: Waite was not just an actor, but a politically active citizen who ran for Congress 3 times in California, proving his desire to serve went far beyond the fictional roles he inhabited. Jessica Walter brought laughter with her larger-than-life personality, but our next guest star brought a unique physical presence that challenged societal norms. He was a man of small stature with a massive heart whose life was cut short in a shocking tragedy that left the cast reeling. Michael Gilden entered the squad room in 2006 as Marty Pearson when he was 44 years old, a charming romantic interest for Abby Sciuto, whose bright on-screen spark concealed a darkness that would lead to a devastating and premature end. Standing at just 4 feet 3 inches, Gilden broke barriers in an industry that often relegated actors of his stature to creatures or punchlines, and his chemistry with Pauley Perrette offered a rare dignified representation of romance. For his recurring work, he likely earned the standard Screen Actors Guild guest rate of approximately $4,000 per week, a modest sum that reflected his status as a working actor rather than the unique value he brought to the narrative. Despite a net worth estimated at just $300, $1,000, Gilden was a fierce advocate for little people in Hollywood, fighting for respect in a superficial town. However, the optimism he projected masked a profound internal anguish that no one saw coming. On December 5, 2006, shortly after his appearance on the show, Gilden took his own life by hanging in his Los Angeles home. He was only 44. His suicide sent shockwaves through the NCIS cast and the community, a tragic reminder that the brightest smiles often hide the deepest pain. Fun fact: in a cruel twist of irony, Gilden had previously worked as a stockbroker before turning to acting, proving he had the intellect to navigate Wall Street, but perhaps not the armor to survive the emotional brutality of Hollywood. Gilden's physical stature set him apart, but our next guest star was a powerhouse of presence whose sudden silence revealed a secret battle against a bottle that she had been fighting for decades. Elizabeth Peña stepped into the badge in 2004 as FBI agent Lena Reyes when she was 45 years old. A trailblazing Latina actress whose commanding authority on screen served as a fortress protecting a fragile, crumbling reality. Known for her roles in La Bamba and Rush Hour, Peña brought legitimate movie star gravitas to the early seasons of NCIS. As a recognized name, she likely commanded a special guest star fee in the range of $10,000 to $15,000 per episode, a significant step up from standard players, but a far cry from the millions she helped generate for blockbusters like The Incredibles. Her career was a testament to versatility, amassing a net worth of approximately $5 million yet. Behind the confident, raspy voice lay a fatal secret she kept hidden from the public eye. On October 14, 2014, the world was stunned when Peña died abruptly at age 55. While initially reported as natural causes, the coroner later revealed the devastating truth: she had succumbed to cirrhosis of the liver due to chronic alcohol use, which triggered acute gastrointestinal bleeding. It was a harrowing, lonely end for a woman who had spent her life breaking glass ceilings only to be cut down by the one demon she couldn't arrest. Fun fact, Peña was also a talented director, becoming one of the first Latina women to join the Directors Guild of America, showcasing a vision that extended far beyond acting. Peña played a temporary ally to the team, but our next actor was cast as the very first director of NCIS, a man who lost his command on screen quickly, only to find global fame later as a political snake. Gregory Itzin assumed command in 2003 as Director Charlie when he was 55 years old, the original leader of the agency whose brief tenure was a mere prelude to a career defined by playing the men we love to hate. Before he became the iconic treacherous President Logan on 24. Itzin was a journeyman character actor grinding through procedural roles. For his short stint on NCIS, he likely earned the standard guest rate of roughly $3,500 per episode, a bargain price for an actor of his caliber who would later command 5 figures per week during his Emmy-nominated prime. His departure from NCIS paved the way for the more famous directors that followed, but Itzin continued to work tirelessly, building a respectable estate of $5 million. His tragedy was not one of scandal, but of a sudden mechanical failure of the body. On July 8, 2022, while undergoing emergency surgery for a heart condition, Itzin passed away on the operating table at the age of 74. It was a frantic, terrifying end for a man known for his calculated, icy demeanor on camera. Fun fact, Itzin was a rarity in the Star Trek universe, having played 5 different characters across 3 different series, DS9, Voyager, and Enterprise, proving he was the ultimate chameleon who could disappear into any species or rank. Itzin played a civilian bureaucrat, but our next subject was the ultimate military archetype. He was a man with a voice like thunder and a heart of gold, whose fictional rank of general became so convincing that fans often forgot he was just an actor. Don S. Davis reported for duty in 2004 as the MTAC control officer when he was 62 years old, a cult icon whose imposing uniform masked a gentle artist's soul that would stop beating far too soon. Best known to the world as General Hammond from Stargate SG-1 and Major Briggs from Twin Peaks Davis, was the industry's go-to military authority. Despite his cult status, his cameo on NCIS was likely paid at standard scale, around $5,000, a humble figure for a man whose voice could command armies. His net worth of approximately $4 million was built not on blockbuster paychecks, but on the steady, reliable residuals of a man who never turned down work. However, the stress of a lifetime of work took its toll. Davis suffered from heart disease and diabetes conditions he managed quietly while maintaining a grueling convention schedule for his fans. On June 29, 2008, at the relatively young age of 65, he suffered a massive heart attack and died in his home in British Columbia. The sci-fi world mourned the loss of their general, a man who provided a sense of safety and order that vanished the moment he left the screen. Fun fact, before Hollywood called Davis was a captain in the U.S. Army stationed in Korea and held a PhD in theater, making him one of the few actors who actually earned the stripes he wore on his costume. The general commanded respect, but our next guest commanded history. He was a titan of the stage and screen who brought a century of wisdom to his role, surviving long enough to become the last witness to a golden era that has completely faded away. Hal Holbrook wandered into the narrative in 2006 as Mickey Stokes when he was 81 years old, a cinematic legend whose portrayal of an elderly escape artist mirrored his own defiance against the inescapable prison of time. As the man who famously portrayed Mark Twain for decades and starred in All the President's Men, Holbrook's appearance on NCIS was a prestige event. The studio likely paid a special guest star premium of over $20,000 for his single appearance, a token of respect for a man with a net worth of $5 million and a shelf full of Tony and Emmy awards. Yet, longevity is a double-edged sword. Holbrook's tragedy was the exquisite pain of outliving his world. He watched his beloved wife Dixie Carter die in 2010 and spent his final decade working through the grief, acting well into his 90s, because the silence of an empty house was too loud to bear. He passed away on January 23, 2021 at the age of 95, sitting alone in his Beverly Hills home, the last leaf falling from a very old tree. Fun fact, Holbrook served in World War II in Newfoundland, and throughout his 60-year career, he played the role of Mark Twain on stage over 2,000 times, a feat of endurance that no other actor in history has ever matched. Holbrook was a legend who found fame early, but our next subject was a late bloomer who didn't find his footing until his hair turned gray. He entered the NCIS universe as a link to Ziva David's past, carrying a history that spanned from the Korean War to the TV screen. Jack Axelrod arrived in DC in 2012 as Shmael Pincus when he was 82 years old, a late-blooming talent whose portrayal of Ziva David's mentor triggered a wave of nostalgia, yet his own life was a masterclass in delayed gratification that ended in inevitable silence. While most actors retire by their 80s, Axelrod was just hitting his stride, having spent the majority of his life as a licensed architect before catching the acting bug. For his poignant arc on NCIS, he likely negotiated a standard guest star rate of approximately $3,000 to $4,500 per week, a modest sum for a man who once designed buildings, yet invaluable for the emotional depth he brought to the TIVA era. He wasn't chasing millions. With a net worth estimated at $1.5 million accumulated from two distinct careers, he was chasing immortality. He worked tirelessly until the very end, defying the physical decay that claims so many of his peers. However, time is the one adversary no script can defeat. Axelrod passed away on November 28, 2023, at the age of 93 from natural causes in Los Angeles, fading away quietly, much like the old world wisdom his character represented. Fun fact, before Hollywood, Axelrod served as a corporal in the U.S. Army during the Korean War, meaning the military bearing he displayed on screen was forged in actual service, not a drama school. Axelrod lived a long, full life that spanned nearly a century, but our next guest star bore a famous name that seemingly destined him for greatness, only to be struck down in a sudden heart-wrenching tragedy while playing with his own child. Francesco Quinn reported for duty in 2004 as Depiel Luis Romero when he was 41 years old, the son of a cinematic titan who fought to carve his own path in the shadow of a legend, only to have his heart stop in a terrifying instant of domestic horror. As the son of Anthony Quinn, Francesco carried a heavyweight legacy that often obscured his own rugged talent. While his famous last name opened doors, his paycheck for NCIS was that of a working journeyman, likely falling in the range of $5,000 for the episode, a microscopic figure compared to the multi-million-dollar empire his father built. Despite appearing in Platoon and serving as the voice of Dino in Transformers, Quinn struggled to eclipse his lineage, building a modest estate of roughly $1 million. The tragedy of his life was its brutal abruptness. On August 5, 2011, while jogging near his home in Malibu with his 10-year-old son, Quinn collapsed from a massive heart attack. He died on the street before help could arrive, passing away at the shockingly young age of 48, leaving his son to witness the fall of his hero. Fun fact, Francesco was born in Rome and was fluent in 4 languages, possessing a cosmopolitan charm that directors often ignored in favor of casting him as the gritty soldier or thug. Quinn's heart failed him on a sunny street in Malibu, but our next actor faced a colder, more violent end. He was a familiar face who made a living playing tough survivors, but found himself helpless against the crushing power of nature itself. Christopher Allport stepped into the line of fire in 2005 as captors Dan Carzon when he was 58 years old, a prolific character actor whose chilling on-screen intensity was eclipsed by a real-life disaster that reads like a survival horror script. Known to millions as Pete Campbell's father in Mad Men, Allport was a reliable industry veteran who commanded a respectable guest fee of around $6,000 to $8,000 per week. He was the definition of a blue-collar actor, accumulating a net worth of $2 million through hundreds of credits without ever becoming a household name. However, his story ended in a nightmare of ice and snow. On January 25, 2008, while skiing at the Mountain High Resort in California, a place he knew well, Allport was caught in a massive avalanche that swept out of bounds. Despite his experience, he was buried alive under tons of snow and suffocated, his body found alongside two others. He was 60 years old. It was a terrifying, frozen end for a man who brought so much warmth and fire to his roles. Fun fact: Allport wrote a story specifically about his life in the acting trenches titled The Back Nine, ironically focusing on the struggles of aging in Hollywood just before his life was cut short. Allport was a victim of chaotic, uncontrollable forces, but our next subject represented the cold, controlled world of bureaucracy. He was the face of the agency's upper management, a man who projected order, while a silent killer destroyed his mind from the inside out. Bruce Gray took the helm in 2004 as Assistant Director Jonathan Overmeyer when he was 68 years old, the quintessential suit whose silver-haired authority made him the perfect bureaucrat, even as he fought a private war against a terminal invader. A Canadian icon known for My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Gray brought an international prestige to NCIS, earning a standard recurring rate estimated at $5,000 per episode. While his character was often an obstacle for Gibbs, Gray was a beloved figure in the theater community, amassing a net worth of $2 million over a 50-year career. The tragedy lay in the slow dismantling of his brilliant mind. Gray was diagnosed with brain cancer, a diagnosis he handled with the same stoic dignity he brought to his roles. He spent his final days in hospice care, fading away on December 13, 2017, at the age of 81. It was a cruel irony that a man known for playing characters of sharp intellect and control was taken by a disease that attacks the very seat of consciousness. Fun fact: before acting, Gray earned a master's degree in psychology, which he claimed was the secret weapon that allowed him to deconstruct and inhabit the minds of the cold authority figures he often played. Gray played the man behind the desk, but our next actor was the man in the field. He was a familiar face of 80s and 90s television who spent his career chasing bad guys, only to be taken down by a relentless disease just as he reached his golden years. Erich Anderson flashed his badge in 2003 as Agent Jack Canton when he was 47 years old, a ruggedly handsome face of the procedural world whose career was a marathon of guest spots, ending in a heartbreakingly recent farewell. Anderson, best known as Felicity's father, was a staple of the NCIS universe's early days, earning the standard guild minimum of approximately $3,000 to $4,000 for his week of work. He was the ultimate, "Hey, it's that guy," actor, building a comfortable life and a net worth of $1.5 million, not through stardom, but through sheer reliability. However, his narrative took a tragic turn that is still fresh in the minds of fans. After a grueling and private battle with cancer, Anderson passed away on June 1, 2024, at the age of 67. His death was a shock to the industry, silencing a voice that had been a comforting background presence for 4 decades. He died too soon to enjoy the full retirement he had earned after thousands of hours on set. Fun fact: Anderson was also a successful novelist who wrote 3 horror thriller books channeling the tension he learned on sets like Friday the 13th, the final chapter, into gripping literature. Anderson played the federal agent, but our next subject was the face of local law. He was a man with a roadmap of wrinkles who played the weary sheriff to perfection, working until his dying breath because he simply didn't know how to stop. Tom Bauer patrolled the screen in 2004 as Sheriff Miller Thompson when he was 66 years old, the craggy-faced veteran whose gritty realism grounded the show, hiding the fact that he was one of the hardest-working yet underpaid actors in cinema history. Famous as the janitor in Die Hard 2, Bauer was a master of the working man role. Despite appearing in massive films, his role on NCIS likely paid the standard guest rate of roughly $400-500 a figure that belied his immense experience. He never chased the millions, retiring with a modest estate of $2 million, but he chased the work, racking up nearly 200 credits. The tragedy of Tom Bauer was simply that the machine finally stopped. He died in his sleep on May 30, 2024, at the age of 86, working almost up to the day he passed. He was the last of a dying breed of character actors who brought dust and grit to a polished industry, leaving a void of authenticity that CGI can never replicate. Fun fact: before he found acting, Bauer worked as a private investigator in Boston, meaning the suspicious probing glare he gave suspects on screen was a skill honed on the mean streets of real life. Bauer was the stoic lawman, but our next actor thrived in the shadows of the bizarre. He was a quirky character actor, known for his nervous energy and eccentric roles, whose distinct presence added a layer of unease to every scene he touched. Jack Kehler sat in the interrogation chair in 2004 as Tom Wilson when he was 58 years old, a master of nervous energy whose frantic on-screen persona became a cult favorite while a silent killer in his blood waited to claim him. Best known to the world as the stuttering landlord in The Big Lebowski, Kehler brought his signature quirky anxiety to NCIS, earning a standard guest star rate of approximately $4,500 for the week. It was a humble paycheck for a man whose face was instantly recognizable to millions, yet he remained a working-class actor his entire life, accumulating a modest net worth of $1.5 million through sheer volume of credits rather than star power. He was the definition of the guy who makes every scene better, but his final act was one of quiet suffering. On May 7, 2022, Kehler died at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center from complications of leukemia at the age of 75. He had kept his battle private working until he physically couldn't, a true trooper who refused to let the disease define his legacy. Fun fact, before finding his footing in Hollywood, Kehler worked as a waiter in New York for years, famously serving and accidentally spilling drinks on the very celebrities he would later star alongside. Kehler played the nervous civilian, but our next subject was built to wear the uniform. He was a man with a jaw of steel and a commanding presence whose lungs tragically failed him just as he reached the peak of his career. Robert Blanche reported for duty in 2005 as Brett Willis when he was 43 years old, a square-jawed enforcer whose imposing physical frame masked a rare suffocating condition that would eventually steal his breath away. A staple of the procedural genre and a regular on Grim Blanche, was the go-to actor for authority figures, commanding a guest fee in the range of $5,000 to $7,000 per appearance. Despite his tough exterior and a net worth estimated at $2 million, Blanche fought a desperate losing battle against hypersensitivity, pneumonitis, a rare lung disease that slowly hardened his lungs, making every breath a struggle. He passed away on January 3, 2020 at the age of 58 in Seattle, taken far too young by a condition that turned the simple act of breathing into an impossible task. It was a devastating blow to the Pacific Northwest acting community, where he was considered a mentor and a titan. Fun fact, Blanche was not just an actor, but a semi-professional kickboxer in his youth, which explained the natural intimidating physicality he brought to every confrontation on screen. Blanche was the muscle of the operation, but our next actor provided the intellect. He was a veteran of the stage who brought a sharp legal mind to the show, only to fall victim to the slow, silent erosion of chronic illness. Gerry Becker entered the fray in 2003 as William Bear when he was 52 years old, a stage veteran whose piercing intelligence on camera could not solve the puzzle of his own declining health. A respected character actor, known for his intensity in films like Man on the Moon, Becker's role in the early days of NCIS was compensated at the standard industry scale of roughly $3,500 per episode. It was a workman's wage for a man of immense talent who had trod the boards of Broadway. He built a life and a net worth of $1 million not through fame but through the relentless grind of auditions and supporting roles. However, the intensity he projected masked a fragile constitution. Becker passed away on January 3, 2020 at the age of 68 due to complications from diabetes. It was a quiet exit for a man who had spent decades shouting in courtrooms and boardrooms on screen, leaving behind a legacy of solid, reliable performances that held entire plots together. Fun fact, Becker was a devoted method actor who would often stay in character, between takes a habit that unnerved younger co-stars, but earned him the deep respect of directors who knew he would always deliver the perfect take. It's bittersweet looking back at the cast of NCIS. Though time has passed and some stars have left us, their legacy remains timeless on screen. Which story shocked or touched you the most? Let us know in the comments below. Please like and subscribe to help us keep these memories alive. Thanks for watching. Forgive.